Okay. Live. I see a live button.
Okay.
This channel has no video, so it's probably just starting.
Okay. So it should be up now.
Of us just hanging here.
Yes.
I do see the live. That was not there before, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't see a live.
On
You may have
the
to refresh it.
Data for all. It says streams. Yeah, I am
It's all good.
refreshing. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Sweet.
I see your screen. And we now have one person that likes us. Oh, that was me.
One friend, I'll take it. Yay!
Yes, I'm going to ask a question.
Where did you see the live thing?
What? The like? Or
The live?
Alive.
Yeah. Oh, there. Why do you got a picture of, who's that dude? What's his name? The picture of the dude you had behind him.
Who are you
Me?
talking about?
There's nothing behind me except for the.
No. It
Wall?
was on his screen. I'm looking at the screen.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're
What's
actually
on the screen?
in the.
Yeah.
I
who's
see.
got?
You went out there. I didn't go out there and do that. I was just.
Oh, that's me hearing. I was hearing us, but that was because I was playing it. Yeah. Your
Oh, I
screen.
see it. Okay.
Charlie.
Nothing behind me
Okay.
except for.
Yeah.
I was afraid it would
No, it was
interfere
on his
if I
screen.
went
I'm
back
looking
and
at the
I tried to
screen.
watch it.
As
Oh,
we were
okay.
doing.
Oh, you're
What's on the
actually
screen?
in the.
Well, you
Huh.
can just make sure you turn off the sound.
Got it.
Okay. So I'm going to test chat real quick.
Okay.
I like my view better than yours, Charlie, because Shauna's in the middle of mine,
Okay.
You're in the middle of mine, Charlie.
splitting
CA.
us up, so I can not get to
Yeah.
Charlie.
Okay, cool. All right. So chat's working.
All right, so we're live.
Yeah.
Yay. How many tech people does it take to get things live on YouTube?
Hey, like this getting a stream going is not always the easiest
I'm
thing.
impressed. I really am. Oh, and it's about 30 seconds behind. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it sounds about
should
right.
be. Definitely turn the audio off of the stream
Yes, I
if you're
did
going to
do
listen
that,
to it.
And actually, I'd rather not watch it, but I'll keep it on back
I
there.
think it'd be distracting.
Okay, I have not hit record for us yet.
Okay. So whenever
There
you're ready.
you are.
Record. Okay, I'm hitting record. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold on.
On today's podcast,
Not yet. Hold on. We need my 2 claps.
Yeah.
We're gonna have 3 streams.
Duh.
of Data for All, OpenAI drama explained.
Redo.
All right. You gonna do the claps again?
Nope.
Okay. On today's podcast of Data for All, OpenAI drama explained.
Welcome to the Data for All podcast. I'm Charlie Apigian.
And I'm Charlie Yielding.
And I'm Shauna Sprague, and we want to empower you to think different with data.
Yes, and today Charlie and Shauna are going to help explain the drama that we have seen unfold over the past basically the past week actually, with OpenAI. And I've tried to stay up to date, but you two have really been keeping up with it. So can you all help me out in understanding? I don't know, is Sam now on a boat somewhere? Is he retired? That's Sam Altman, of course, the CEO.
Yes.
Shauna, Charlie, you got to help us all out today.
A lot has happened in the last few weeks. And so let me start by giving you just a little bit of a timeline overview so that we can make sure that we all understand exactly what happened. So
Okay.
To start with, I think November 6th was probably we'll go over the rumors and all the theories in a minute, but November 6th was the dev conference. And so Sam Altman got on stage, announced a lot of really cool stuff, including a store for the OpenAI, as well as some price cuts for the APIs in there. So there was a lot of things discussed there. So we think that might have, been part of what started the rumblings on the board. Then on November 17th.
So wait, I'm not
ahead.
going to let you go too fast. Remember, I don't assume I know
Okay.
what's going on here. So I did watch it on the 6th, and I was all excited. So what you're saying is the board could have been, you don't know this for a fact, but there could have been a start of, hey, what's he doing? There could be that some of those things they did not know about. And of course, I'm just making this up. I'm not sure if that's true or not.
No, and absolutely. And so, from what I've read and what I understand, there was definitely some, I guess, miscommunication there where Sam felt like the board was not knew what he was going to talk about, and then when it got released, there's the potential for there wasn't all that information disclosed to the board, so they felt like they may have been misled or under informed. So that's a potential thing that could have happened. So
we'll get a lot into that later, though.
Yes, we will.
But before we jump fully into the timeline after the dev thing, though, I want to make note that this is our first stream as Dave for All podcast is. So it officially first stream. Congratulations, everybody.
Oh, yay! That's a good point.
So if this seems like a different format or not what you're used to, that's why.
Yes, we are streaming for the first time, and the thousands of people that are out there. We didn't actually even announce it, I don't think, but. We are right after the holiday, and we thought it would be fun to do this. And we're all at home during our time. What else do you do on the Friday after Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah. So take it right back, Shauna. Sorry.
Yeah,
now, before we go into that, the 6th through the 9th, wasn't it 3 days? It was the Dev conference. Does that
I believe it
right?
was. It was several days. Unfortunately, I did not get to go, but maybe I'll go next year.
But we did watch some of the different things. So then that means from the 9th to what day did the drama start?
So on November 17th, OpenAI announced Sam Altman is out as CEO and removed from the board. So Greg Brockman steps down as chairman. Later, he quits OpenAI completely. And I'm going to mirror Moradi. I'm not sure if it is appointed as interim CEO. And so that is when I think the big bombshell dropped and we saw Microsoft stock start to tumble along with the OpenAI.
Yeah.
Okay, so at 10:42 on November 17th, Greg Brockman tweeted, Sam and I are shocked and saddened by what the board did today. Let us first say thank you to all the incredible people who have we have worked with at OpenAI, our customers, our investors, and all of those who have been reaching out. And we are still trying to figure it out, ... That's all I've got on my screen, so that's what we'll go with. But so this happened at night?
During the day.
On the 17th? Or during the day?
Yep, happened during the day. Shortly, like it was right before noon. They reached out to Sam. Was like, "Hey, we need to talk to you." They being the board. So Greg, it's worth pointing out that Greg and Sam were both on the board, and Greg's actually the chair of the board. And they needed 4 votes to oust the CEO. So the rest of the other 4 were 3 members that were not part of OpenAI, and then one of the co-founders of OpenAI. And so they got a notification right before. They being Greg, Sam, and the initial interim CEO all found out right before this happened.
So let me take a step back for 1 second. OpenAI, is it a for-profit company or is it a nonprofit?
It's for profit, but it's capped profit. So you can only make 100 times what you invest. Yes. And so it's a bit different in that like it's not infinite growth. Like what the open market is right now. But that capped profit, it means that a lot more money goes to the people and to the product than would otherwise.
And my understanding is that Sam Altman has been very integral in that and making sure that stayed consistent. So
and it's also worth noting that he didn't take a salary and he doesn't have any options. And so he's not personally enriching himself through OpenAI. I mean, he is indirectly for sure, like no doubt about it, but they're not paying him money and he's not going to realize any kind of golden parachutes if OpenAI were to sell. So he's not motivated to sell. And we'll get into that later. Yeah. But so all of that stuff happens on Friday. Then where does it go?
Well, then on the 18th, which is Saturday, news surfaces that there's a possibility that Sam Altman might return to OpenAI. So that was, all over the news. And, I think we all experienced that with like Twitter and some of the others, when there's been big upsets, you hear these rumors, and I kind of dismissed it, but evidently I should not have, because then on November 19th, Emmett Shear briefly becomes CEO of OpenAI, and after others refuse. So they basically made several offers, and that was, nobody wanted to do it. So the co-founder of Twitch said he was going to get to the bottom of what happened, and requested information for specific instances on why Sam was fired. So definitely some rumblings going on there where people want to know answers. The board was not providing information for him to remain CEO the way he needed it to be, and the board ultimately said he was too devious to point. He was too devious to point at any specific instance, and that they had just lost faith in his abilities.
Yep.
So basically, to me, that's a very vague statement, but that's my opinion.
Right.
Okay. So Emmett Shear, CEO of Twitch, was he on the board
No.
for OpenAI? Okay.
So
he
they
was an
reached out.
outsider?
Yeah, so the existing board, or the remaining board rather, they reached out to several people. From what folks are saying, it was driven by Adam D'Angelo trying to find somebody as a replacement and whatnot. So they made a couple excuse me, they made a couple of offers before that were rejected. And the former Twitch founder, Emmett Shear, he accepted it under the condition that it was legit, right? And so, I mean, he didn't come out and say that in the beginning, but he pretty immediately, once he started looking under the hood, he was like, well, where is this lack of leadership? Where are these moments of deception? And what it appears is that Sam just got what he wanted. And if you're a board and the CEO, who's also on the board, is kind of getting what they're wanting, then what is the board for? That's not typically why people join boards, is to just say, okay, do whatever you want. And they, and this is obviously a group of people who have a lot of opinions, and in some cases, opinions strong enough to take some pretty hasty action.
Yes. So 72 hours is what Emmett Shear lasted. It says that he was deeply pleased with the result in the end. So it sounds like this wasn't like he was trying to take over or anything like that. And I think it's good to, as we talk through this is a board that is in charge of a company that could literally change the trajectory of, humankind. If you think artificial intelligence is going to become something. So their job to me is pretty important. And so shocking that it was so hastily done, for something so important. But wow. Okay. So we had on the 19th, you're saying, that's when Emmett Shear became the CEO.
Yes. And good for him for asking the right questions and making sure that, everything was above board when, good for him, because he could have just stepped in and started running things. And instead he asked questions. And so good for him. And so I think if nothing else, that's a lesson to us in this AI whole experience, is we need to ask questions.
Yeah.
Question things.
So a lot of while this stuff was going on, because it's a really dense timeline, but there was a lot of action on Twitter between Sam, Greg, and some of the players, and then ultimately the employees of OpenAI. And so there was an outpouring. Sam had a tweet that said, "A company is nothing without its employees," and then just retweet after retweet after retweet with just hearts. That's it. And so they were showing, as an organization, they were showing what they cared about. Pretty openly on Twitter, which is, we'll talk about it a little bit later. That's not very common, we'll say, especially when you get to the 700s. Like when you're in a 30-person company, maybe, but 700 people looking all in the same direction, that's not something. It's not something I see very regularly.
Well, then.
Understood.
After the 19th, on the 21st, Microsoft offers positions to Sam and Greg so that they can come on board and run their AI division. And so run their own show. And that was a very smart move on Microsoft. If you watch their stock, it shot right up. To me, Microsoft became the big winner the second they did that. So then, they also offer jobs to every OpenAI employee that would like to continue to work with Sam. And so that's a brilliant move, because that basically opened the door, said you have zero risk. It's not like you're quitting your job and you have nothing to fall back on. Just roll on over here to Microsoft and keep doing what you're doing. And so I think that was really smart. As you mentioned, 700 of the OpenAI employees on November 22nd signed a letter threatening to quit unless the board changed.
Mm-hmm.
Sam and Greg were reinstated at OpenAI, and there were government changes at OpenAI are implemented.
Yeah.
So that is 700 of 770 employees. So
Mhm.
90% roughly of your employees. I have never worked. I've basically only worked in, the Fortune 500, realm there. But I can tell you that would never happen in a company of, that has 1 million employees.
Right.
So that is just not, I've never even worked for a leader that I think an entire team would fall down, for. So that says something about Sam and the culture they've created.
I agree.
I think that you get that great culture in those startups where they guard it with their life. And I think this is a perfect example of that. I only hope I can be some kind of leader like that someday.
Wow. All right. So I got to put this in context again, because the 23rd was Thanksgiving. So this was a holiday week. This is all happening. The 17th was Friday. So Friday afternoon, we know what happens on Friday afternoons. That's when you want to bury the lead. And that's why this was done. Everybody was going on Thanksgiving break, basically. That's when they go ahead and fire a CEO. The 18th was that Saturday. You're saying that's when news was coming up that they might bring him back. Sunday is when they announced a new CEO, Emmett Shear.
Yeah.
And then on that Tuesday was when Microsoft hired Sam Altman and Greg Brockman and said, anybody else? And so here we are on Tuesday, 2 days before Thanksgiving. This is all happening. And so Sam and Greg are now at Microsoft. Is that
Nope.
what the final result is?
They're back at OpenAI.
Whoa,
Nope,
wait a minute.
they are
All right.
back.
What happened next, Shauna?
Okay, well, what happened next is they, as of, the 23rd,
Yeah.
or actually, the 22nd, they reinstated Sam Altman and Greg Brockman, and everybody stayed, but they also basically turned over the entire board, minus one person that will eventually turn over as well. And so I feel like that they listened to the employees and did the right thing. So it would be a shame to let OpenAI fall just because of a board's decision there. But I've never in my life seen this kind of thing happen.
Wow.
Usually when a board speaks, it is done.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it goes to show how perilous of a position that they are actually in as a board. Because we're talking about like they've got the power and they had to sneak to make to make this happen. And then once they did, then so to me, Saturday, the 18th is when people started talking about him coming back, because Friday, it didn't go well for anybody because Microsoft came in swinging their power because nobody told Microsoft until right before. And so Microsoft is a 49% investor in OpenAI. And so that's a big deal to them. But I do agree with Shauna. They were going to win no matter what, because when they decided to bring on Greg and Sam and offer employment to every OpenAI employee that wanted it, they essentially bought a company. They didn't get the IP right away, but they bought a company without any without having to put in any investment other than just the wages, and that would have been spectacular for Microsoft for sure. But they're also in a position where they've already invested all this money into OpenAI. And so I think it works better for them in the end to keep everything going with OpenAI because they've got momentum there. They've got years worth of work that they're just, they're building on. And so they've got a good thing going right now for sure. And if Microsoft did take it over, they'd have to start over. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But they could, in theory, start over with, from a better foundation because they've learned some stuff between then and now. And so I think in the end, we would have been AI has been a big part of our lives for the past year, or at least talking about it has. And so it would have set us back quite a bit. The front runner would have gone from GPT to Claude probably, because Anthropic is, they're in the mix a little bit because, there's some rumors that they were talking about merging the companies. And then one of the board members likes Anthropic's approach to ethics versus the capitalization of the product. And so they like, but we'll get into that in just a second with like why all this happened, because I feel like that is a really important piece to this whole puzzle. It's like, why would a group of 4 people decide that this needs to happen and then not be able to provide that information later? And so Saturday is when all of this stuff kind of started happening, with people being like, okay, board, well, you did this thing. Why did you do it? And then they have not to this point given a single example of why they did it, other than he was not leading with candor, and they did not believe he was able to lead the company any further, which are 2 generic statements.
So let's introduce the board. Charlie, who is on the board? Who was the? So it sounds like the board changed on the 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the board before the firing on the 17th?
So it was 6 people, and so we've already talked about Greg Brockman, who was the chair of the board, and we've talked about Sam Altman. The folks we haven't talked, who's the CEO, he's the face. If you know OpenAI, you know Sam. Then we've got Ilya Sutskever. I'm not sure if I'm saying that last, but he's a co-founder and the chief scientist at the company. He's actually one that signed, or that was a part of the coup, and so he voted to oust Sam, and subsequently on Saturday, when everything started coming out, he posted a tweet where he was just like, I'm deeply sorry for my involvement in this entire thing. This is a mistake, et cetera, et cetera. So it feels like to me like he was convinced to do something that he was on the fence about, or that he may have never thought about on his own without like the help of a group. At least that's the way it seems to me.
Yeah, it felt like to me, based on his tweet and things I've read, is that he may have been like going along, like kind of, I guess, coerced a little bit, as well as maybe he was given a little bit of misinformation too. So.
Okay, so at 7:15 on November 20th, he says, I deeply regret my participation in the board's actions. I never intended to harm OpenAI. I love everything we've built together, and I will do everything I can to reunite the company. So that's a pretty strong statement right there. Okay, so that's 3 of them. Who else was on the board?
So we've got Adam D'Angelo, who is one of the prime suspects for potentially getting this started, because he's a former CTO at Facebook. He was a founder of Quora, Quora, and he's also a part of, or he's got a product now called Poe. And so Poe is a chatbot. It's basically a competition with GPT. And so that's important, because if you're not aware that GPTs in the marketplace are about to get announced and you have a direct competitor, you're about to get wrecked. You're going to get wiped off the map. Everything you've been working on since 2018, gone. So it's like we're playing detective here through hearsay, but it feels like he would have had motivation to oust somebody who was pushing products, because that's one of the things that they say about Sam, is that he's pushing commercialization of GPT. And if you push a marketplace out there where anybody can create any GPTs that they want, then if you've been an RPA person, a chatbot person, any kind of bot individual, this is bad news for you. So I say that just to establish, like we're going to go into it more in just a little bit, but that's his potential position. He's also the only board member that is he's still remaining, and he was one of the people that was being a stick in the mud when it came to bringing Sam back. And again, this is hearsay, but this is what's being reported and whatnot.
And the other 2?
So then we've got Tasha McCauley. She's just tech entrepreneur. Don't really know. Don't know much about her. And then Helen Toner, who's the director of strategy for Georgetown University's Center for Security and Emerging Technology. So it sounds like she's an academic that works in the field to be on a board for OpenAI. Yeah. When ethics is a part of the thing, or a part of the game, because we're in brand new territory. So one of her pieces, or something unique about her with regards to this whole scenario, and something that she might, or a reason she might be involved, is because she's pretty opposed to the way GPT is approaching monetization. She thinks they're moving too fast in general and all this other kind of stuff. And I say that because she's posted a paper that's praised Anthropic's approach with Claude 2, intentionally slowing things down until there's more products out there, not being so far ahead of the game, et cetera, et cetera. And in the same paper, kind of criticized OpenAI's approach to putting out new models. Like, she thinks that 3.5 was fine, but then pushing out 4 in the way that it was pushed out was just too much. It's too feature rich. It's like, we don't know where this is going. She leans a lot on the intellectual property piece. Like, you're training this model with like copyrighted materials. And so it's like, ethically, like there's two different sides of this ethics thing, right? There's the ethics of like, what's mine is mine and I created it, and so I should be the only person who makes stuff off of it. But then there's the ethics of like, are we going to destroy humanity? And both arguments are potentially at play here. And we'll get into that more later. But the piece for her to remember, though, is that she's no longer on the board, but she was in direct opposition to the way that it was playing out. And so I also want to challenge everybody here to think about, there were 4 people that decided for it, or decided to oust Sam for whatever reason. And from the way I'm seeing it, I don't think that they were all doing it for the same reason. I don't think that they saw one particular thing or one group of things and said, that's troubling. Let's take care of that. Mm-hmm. I think they all had their own motivations. And so right now, Tasha McCauley and Elia are like, we don't know why they did it, but we know that Elia is, he was remorseful about doing it. And so I don't know go ahead.
I was going to say, Helen Toner also, when she was at Oxford, was part of I just had it up, the Future of Humanity Institute. So it's obviously something she's been working on for a long time.
Yeah.
She's been at Georgetown for a little bit now, but at Oxford, it sounds like, she left there in 2018. So that does make sense what you were saying about she cares really on that academic thing. It's like, making sure that artificial intelligence doesn't take over the world kind of stuff. And being on a board like this, makes sense to have an academic because of the, how much this could actually make a difference.
We all need at least one academic.
Yeah. And, so there were 6 people on the board. Does that sound right?
There were 6 board members before. Yeah, I did. So I said we all need an academic. I was talking about you.
Yeah, I know. Thank
you. Well, you didn't laugh.
The 2 were ousted. The other 4 voted against those 2. Or did they only vote against Sam and then Greg?
They demoted. They kicked him off the board.
Right.
Okay. So what they told Greg is that, like, hey, you're not the chair of the board anymore, but we really need you in the business side. And then Greg was like, what? I'm out. Like, why would you do this? Bye. And then that was where their house of cards started to fall, because they went out on a limb and they got caught. So if it's like, you remember the old cartoons where the cat's Jerry's like sawing the tree branch, but he's standing on the wrong side, and then he falls and all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of how it feels with this group of folks, because if Helen Toner wanted to be in a position to set the ethics for AI, she was there. Right. But she got too uppity, for lack of a better words, and now she's not. And so her voice in that community is diminished at this point, and that's because she made what has turned out to be a very poor choice. Okay, or not Charlie, just her, but the rest of them as well.
I think Charlie has the best analogies ever, doesn't he?
It's always entertaining, that's for sure.
And I want to get through this part because I want to get to your thoughts on what this really means. So quickly, Charlie, the board is not those 6 anymore. Sam and Greg back on the board?
No. So the board after the board as it stands right now is a developing thing. So let me pull up my new board stuff. Did you move? Oh yeah.
Well, and I do think it's a smart thing not to have the CEO on the board specifically, because that, I feel like that there's a conflict there.
It's a
potentially,
lot of
especially
power in
with
one
what's
spot.
happening. It's a lot of power in
Yeah.
one person.
For sure. I think like I agree with that pretty wholeheartedly, because if the CEO wants to go a direction, then they've got to vote and they've got the influence as well on the board. Whereas they're like in most cases a good CEO reports to a board in a responsible way, and then they all make decisions together. Well, technically, it's based off of reality. The board makes a decision together and then tells the CEO what's what. But in a real or in a good environment, it's a back and forth, or it should be back and forth.
Yeah.
So the only holdover is Adam D'Angelo, or is
Yeah,
there
and
also-
so the speculation right now is that he's being the stick in the mud and the hardest one to deal with, as far as like he was the gatekeeper for Sam and Greg coming back. One of the conditions that Sam had was that Adam left, and one of the conditions that Adam had was that Sam never come back. And so it seems like they've compromised in some way. But I severely doubt that he's going to be on the board for very much longer. Like I think this conflicts of interest thing.
Him at this point, right?
Yeah. I think investors would really like to see him go, because now that everybody knows that he's got a competing product, like why would you want to keep him on there? So then they've got Larry Summers, who's he's got a lot of time with fancy people. He's worked with a lot of administrations throughout the past and stuff, but he's not really a tech person per se. So I think that maybe he's just a placeholder for, like, we'll call it traditional business folks to look to and be like, oh, well, at least they've got a responsible person on the board now.
Yeah, he has a terrible resume. I mean, only president of Harvard for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
He was a professor of economics at Harvard since 1983. So he's, yes, older. Chief economist of World Bank. So obviously he understands how the world runs. So director of the U.S. National Economic Council for President Barack Obama for a couple of years.
But
so definitely not a tech person.
But he's the adult in the room, so to speak.
Yes.
Like I assume that most people would think that something like this wouldn't happen with somebody like him on the board, for sure.
Yeah.
And then
that's a good way of saying it. Yeah, that's for sure. He's now going to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
And
who's the last one?
He knows how to protect investments for sure. Based off of his resume, I would assume that. And then the last person we know of right now is Brett Taylor, and so this is where I get a little sensitive, because he's also 43, but he's been the associate product manager at Google. He basically built Maps. He's co-founder of FriendFeed, became CTO of Facebook after the acquisition, founded Quip. He helped do some stuff at Salesforce. I'm not sure on the specifics, but that led to him being the co-CEO. And then he was the chairman of Twitter's board until the acquisition that we all know about and the shenanigans afterwards. And now he's the it says he might, like on here it says he's the chairman, but I'm not actually sure. But he's definitely on the board, because I don't know if it's got a chair right now, or if you have to have a temporary chair no matter what. I guess you do actually have to have a chair. Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah.
Okay, so we got the board, we've got the timeline. I'm gonna go back to you, Shauna. What do you make of all this? What are some of the highlights that you just can't believe?
I think that, like I said earlier, Microsoft is the very clear winner here. I was really shocked to find out that Sam Altman did not have any shares and had no. I was shocked to find that out, because that's a pretty standard thing with any startup.
Have you seen him tell the Congress about that?
I have not.
Oh, it's very entertaining. It's like they were also shocked, and visibly so.
I mean, like, typically, a package with a startup company is, some percentage of stock and some percentage of money. And so, like, usually a C-level will take a significant amount of stock. They're very vested in the company. And so I was pretty shocked by that. I do think that, I did hear some rumors as I was reading on Reddit, where people felt like potentially he had the opportunity here to leverage getting some stock. because, to come back, they fired him. If he wants to come back, then they
yeah,
need to
that's
entice
true.
him to come back.
Yeah.
So to my knowledge, that hasn't happened yet, or maybe it happened in the background and we don't know about it yet. But to me, I would leverage it personally, that, I would use that opportunity to get stock.
So Charlie, as a CEO, should a CEO have a financial stake in a company because that makes it
Yeah.
more real for them?
Yeah, I mean, it's whether should or shouldn't. It's definitely a motivator. So if just from a traditional business perspective, like you want to motivate your executives just like you want to motivate every single employee. And how do you motivate an executive to grow the company? Well, you give them pieces, pieces of ownership that grow as they grow the business. And so it's seen as an inline motivation. Like there's nothing that they should do that wouldn't automatically impact them. And so that's just how business works. Like you hear executives talk about their golden parachutes and stuff like that. That's usually them cashing out their options when they sell a company or whatnot. And so I don't think that it has to be that way, and I don't think it's bad when people do it that way. I just think that there's definitely a balance of like what's too much versus not enough. Specifically with that one position at CEO, because we see right now, like you can look at like Kroger, for example, like their CEO makes 365 times the average employee, not the entry level employee, but the average employee. So in one day, their CEO makes their average employee's yearly wage. And if you go to a Kroger versus like we'll call it a Publix, you can see a big difference because Publix, the CEO makes I think it's $600,000 a year. Whereas the Kroger executive is making, dozens of millions of dollars. So there's definitely over motivation at the cost of the company and all that kind of stuff. But in this case, you've got an executive that I think it's playing out exactly as it was intended. So you don't take a salary, you don't take options. You're doing this for the love because, just in case everybody's not aware, Sam Altman is wealthy. Yes. He has no issues with money in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. And he's also got active investments that are making him money right now, which early on, that was some of the speculation that some of his other investments were competing and things like that. But I think that for me, that all went out the window when the employees of OpenAI showed up like they did. Like when 700 of 770 employees put their name on a piece of paper saying the board's gone or I quit, that means that at least 700 of the 770 employees are looking in the exact same direction. They're motivated. And Sam even tweeted one time, he was like, I love working with mission-driven people. And then you can see all of the OpenAI people just heart. There's a lot of hearts on Twitter in the 5 days that this was going on.
Yeah, so that's one for you then, Charlie.
Sorry about that. 700 people is a lot of people to have direct contact with. And it sounds like he has that, like where they see him in the office or they talk to him on calls, he has direct interaction with them and he's connected with them. And so that's a big task. It's one thing to do that with a team, with a company of 20 or 30 people. It's another thing for 700. Yeah. So well done.
To be a leader, because if you have, to your point, Shauna, like if you've got 700 employees, you can't know them all individually. No. You can have met them, you can have conversations with them, you can interact with them, but you can't know them. And then they can't know you. But what they can see is what you do and how you do it and how you treat the people that they know that that you do interact with. And to me, that speaks volumes about how the leadership is going down there and how they're approaching this entire situation as a company, because they're a capped profit company, which means that they're not in it for the infinite growth. You can only get 100 times your growth. It's so awful, right?
I could live with it.
Yeah, it's the same. I'd be good. 1,000 into 100,000 all day. But it's not going to turn into millions, and I'm fine with that too, because I think that this shows that OpenAI is in a position to put its people and its product ahead of investors, and specifically right now, with AI being the way it is, we have to have that. I believe, because if we didn't have it, and so my whole thing on it is like I think this was greed. I think this is all greed. I think this was struck by greed and then carried out by greedy people that convinced other people to go along with them. And
Well, and
go ahead.
we're all self-serving, right? In the sense that, if something threatens us, we try to make it go away.
For sure.
And so I do think that they're, having those. I think it probably was not a great idea to have somebody on the board that had a conflicting company or bot. So things like that. He probably wasn't the only one. He saw an opportunity and he started building. But yeah, when they opened that store, I really think personally that the store is what kicked all this off.
It
And
could be.
so, and of course, there's no actual store now. Just so we get that clear, there's
Not yet.
there's been announcement there's going to be a store,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it is going to be a monetized store where you can make money. But we have not seen said store.
But if
But
yeah,
knowing that that's coming and that you'll be able to create your own GPT and put it out there for anybody to use under your $20 a month right now. So I think that knowing that they just put a lot of startups out of business. And so I can see where that would have ruffled some feathers. And even if they didn't have their own personal project, they've probably got investments. If they're on the board of an AI company, my guess is you bet heavy on AI.
yeah, I would say that's a fair assessment.
Okay. Any other things about this week? I'd say if the thing that I'm reading into this a little bit, I'm going to the technical side and not thinking about the events as much, is I think OpenAI is farther along in the tech than they're leading on to. And that means that's why it's such a serious topic right now.
Well, that's some of the speculation for sure.
Yeah, I've listened to a couple of interviews with Sam Altman where, he almost says, artificial general intelligence is not far away. And that's the kind of stuff that really gets me thinking about this.
Right. And so what it let's just go ahead and jump into that. So big reason number one that we're going to dive into, the board just found out that they're too close to AGI, which is general AI, than they should be. And so they ousted him because they're saying that Sam Altman's capitalistic approach was pushing him too fast. That's definitely what the paper from hang on, I don't want to say her name wrong. Where is it? Oh yeah, Helen Toner. That's what Helen Toner's paper said for sure, is that this is going too fast. And then, but if we're stumbling into AGI, is it true? Think for yourself AGI, or is it I know this particular silo AGI? Meaning that maybe it if from the perspective of a doctor, they even OpenAI a couple of months ago or a few weeks ago now, it's hard to tell. It's just happening so fast. They changed their mission statement to include the ethical creation of AGI, and they had never mentioned that in their mission statement before. It always Gen AI. And so when they made that change, people were like, wonder what's going on there. But then they even said, we're looking to try and make general AI, but in siloed kind of ways. So an AGI that's a doctor, an AGI that's a mechanic, an AGI that's a plumber. And these are all just generic things because it could be developer, data scientist, whatever. And the intent is to create an expert that's tier one everything for that business. So instead of going to a doctor, you call a teledoc and it's an AGI that you're talking to, and it gets you to a percentage of what could be, and then maybe from there you go in and take tests and stuff. And so
I would say that's not general AGI. I think the definition that is domain specific artificial intelligence. That is to me pretty far.
But I think right now everybody's getting those things confused though. So in your roadmap, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, Charlie, from your academic, can you explain to us your interpretation or your definition of AGI, so just for anybody that might not understand?
Yeah, I mean, artificial general intelligence is, it's hard to say we'll ever know when that happens, but if you think about the domains we've gone through, the first is, we've gone through rules-based, and I know we've mentioned this before. Now we're at the point where it's contextual, where it can be able to retrieve information that maybe wasn't specifically based on a rule like it used to be, and that's rule. I know I sound like I can't say the word rule, RULE. The next little aspect they're talking about is domain-specific applications, and that is the lawyer, the doctor, and it's going to have all of the knowledge that it can, but will it actually be reasoning and being able to take those leaps of, okay, will it be able to look at you, Shauna, and say, yes, I know that you have these 18 symptoms, but the truth is you had a bad week last week because the Detroit Lions lost on Thanksgiving, and that's the real reason you're not feeling good, right? It's more of the intelligence that a human brain can do that we just can't explain at this point, but over time we'll probably get to that point where it can reason beyond just a domain-specific application. And right now they're just talking about something in a domain-specific. So I feel artificial general intelligence is when it could literally replace Charlie Yielding, not Charlie Yielding the CEO, if that makes sense.
It does. But I think right now, the way that the general public is talking about it, they're kind of lumping those siloed groups in with general AI, because we don't have enough compute power that exists today to have actual general intelligence.
Very true. Yeah,
like it's
very true.
If I was trying to think about this earlier, like if we were to have AGI, to your point, you said we wouldn't know, and the AGI would have to have figured out how to open all of the doors to all of the network, to basically all the internet, and it could live in the internet as in its entirety, but not just in the public domain. Like there's not enough compute power in the public domain. Just like it would have to use all of the resources across the globe to be able to do something like that. Like our brains are just too complex and we each have supercomputers in our mind. And the more I learn about AGI and our brains, I'm just like, dang, our brains are really fancy.
They're really good. And think about this. What makes us most different is our experiences. So the only way to replicate experiences is to go through and see video and audio. It's not text. It's not stuff that's on the internet. It is, and it would be more than just the state of California in terms of computing power, every light turned on kind of thing. We don't have that computer power to be able to replicate the experiences needed to make the connections between things like we do. All of those things are why we're a little bit far away. And the reason, I know they're going to say we're at artificial general intelligence way before we are.
Yeah.
But the truth is, artificial general intelligence means something is as smart as us, which means they're going to be smarter than us in the near future.
Yeah.
And then the AI singularity, right?
The millisecond after it's created, it's smarter than all of us.
Yeah.
That's very true. The minute it's as smart as us, that means you're right. The millisecond next, it's at ASI. Which is artificial super intelligence.
Oh, I haven't heard that before.
Yes. Yeah, and that would be when it's smarter than us. And then after that, all hell breaks loose. Oops. Well, no, that's not. We'll see. But I would even go back to what I think is dangerous is opening things up to all people like us. You know what I mean? That's why the store or this, I can see as the academic in the room, I would be worried as well when that was announced.
Yeah.
Because what you worry about isn't a controlled environment going crazy. It's when it's opened up to where the least common denominator now can be the one that does something.
Yeah.
And the FOMO
Create
is going to be
something
crazy.
harmful.
Shauna, what do you think about that?
I see that. I mean, we experience that in companies too, where everybody I talk to is like we're trying to figure out how to let our people use it, but without like putting all our secrets out on out there, and so that's a big concern. But yeah, I see what you're saying with like the hackers or the whatever. Like, they're going to be faster and better, and we're going to see those things happen. And so, I think about the ransomware, and that's like a rampant thing right now. I keep hearing people talk about. Imagine if they had ChatGPT, GPTs that could help them with their ransomware. Find out when you're most vulnerable, who's the most vulnerable. Also know about your personality and who's likely to pay and things like that. So yeah. I definitely worry about stuff like that. I don't worry about it taking my job in my lifetime. I do worry about it in my daughter's lifetime.
Yeah,
So I think that one important thing to call out here is that change does suck for most people.
Nobody likes to.
I say not for most people. For some people, change sucks. Like somebody's always hurt through the process of change. Like Uber hurt taxi drivers and stuff like that. But the type of that first type of AGI that's not really AGI that we're talking about, like that's going to have a huge economic impact.
Enormous. Yes.
And that's what people are rightfully scared of right now is like, this is going to change business from top to bottom. Well, we have a market that's set up to work in a certain way with people and some technology and, over the years, it's more technology than it used to be, but it's not mostly technology. And so we could be looking at a realistic time frame that's 10 years where we go from a people workforce to a machine workforce that's supplemented by people, which is what we've been talking about. And every single person who has money in that market is going to get scared. They're going to get upset until there's use cases or proof of concept that the companies aren't going to lose their asses. There are going to be losers no matter what. And that's what people are afraid of, and rightfully so. And that is a conversation that we should definitely be having. But I just don't think that had much to do with what happened at OpenAI. Like, were they flying too close to the sun? Maybe.
Well, and I also heard that, a rumor, another option there was that they didn't like how much power Microsoft had. They kept Microsoft capped at 49% of the company for a reason, and then they felt like Sam Altman was too close with Microsoft.
Oh yeah.
And if we've seen, they've basically reinforced that theory, if that's valid, just because they quickly offered him a job, which I think most companies would have offered Sam a job immediately as well. Yeah. But I think that if anything, Microsoft has even more power now. Because now they've shown their loyalty to Sam.
Yeah, they'll likely have a board spot when this is done as well.
Yeah.
Like that's the
have to.
I would think so. I would force it. Yeah, I would force it at 49%.
Well, I see. The thing is, I think when you initially engage with your investment, that's where you can say like, I have to have a seat on the board, and if they don't have that, then they may not have the actual bargaining chips, but from a like a peer pressure kind of perspective, it's just like, hey, let's not have this happen again. We don't want to get blindsided. But that speaks to what you're saying, kind of rings true with the actions of the board as well, because they didn't tell Microsoft until right before as well. Yeah. So Microsoft was just as surprised.
Yeah, if I was OpenAI, I would offer Microsoft a board seat, but put a contingency in there that they can't take people from the company.
Oh, that's a good call. If they rework the
if they reworked
terms.
It and they said, you cannot take people from our company.
Yeah.
In other words, they can't
compete.
Make that same play a second time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you fire them, like even if you've got no compete, if you fire somebody, they're open game.
Or if they quit, they have the right to do what they want.
Unless they have no compete. And so Sam would have had to have no compete in that case.
Yeah, but if you're fired, usually a non-compete is null and void.
That's a good point too.
And some states, there's Tennessee's they don't apply in Tennessee.
Gotcha. All right, so we did a pretty good job. I'd like to get to the future a little bit.
Yeah, let's do that.
What do you think is? Let's get to the future just now. Let's just go. Shauna, I'll let you start with. What do you think the future of OpenAI will be in the near future, and then moving forward?
I think if anything, it'll be full steam ahead. I think that they've shown their power. I do think of their competition that they are quite a ways ahead. I don't have any visibility under the hood at any of the other companies, but I just feel like OpenAI is releasing things so fast. And if that's Sam's MO, as he wants to, full speed ahead, it'll be up to the board to hold him back. And I don't think Microsoft's going to, play that card. So based on the people that are, the three that they've got on the board right now, I don't see them holding him back.
I think that putting like him in the position of like pedal to the metal may be a little bit it may be a little bit off the mark, because if he were truly like business capitalist type person, like we would be way further out than we currently are. I feel like, because the way they monetize these things, or the way they've been monetizing these things, is they're not making nearly as much money as they could otherwise. because they're offering big businesses the ability to come in and spend a lot of money and get customized tools. And then they've got GPT, they've got GPT Plus right now, which is $20, and they'll have the marketplace. And when the marketplace comes out, that's big money for them, but that's also big money within the confines of GPT-4 Turbo. And so they're giving people tools, but they're not giving people the ability to expand outside of those tools. And whereas I feel like if you were truly gonna go all out, you wouldn't restrict people in that kind of way. Although a marketplace is a very financially sounded way to go.
Yes.
Yeah, I think. No, I was just going to say, I don't mean to say that I think he's really excited about the technology.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think he will try to get as much of it out there as he can because he's excited, and he's got other people excited, and I think he potentially has rose-colored glasses, and maybe is not, maybe the humanity part of it is a little more fuzzy with him.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I mean is I think he'll push for that. So I would probably say they're going to put some people on the board that are going to be a little more I think Larry probably has a pretty good, head on his shoulders just looking at his little resume there.
Yeah.
But I think that you're probably going to have some people that with their, level feet on the ground, making sure that, they're doing the right thing.
Yeah. So they've got traditional business covered. And I'm kind of just going back to with Helen Toner having the position that she had and the ability to do something about it, I just feel like that's the biggest loss, because having her as a board member from the get-go, assuming that she was contributing and stuff and not just being a contrarian, because some people like to be contrarians and not help and stuff, but assuming that she was wanting to help and do good, she was in the best position possible. But now who are they going to get? Who's going to be the voice of reason, so to speak, if the reins do need to get pulled?
Well, and I would be remiss if I didn't say they do need some diversity on the board.
Mm.
So that's one thing that I worry about with all this AI as we build these models and we train them, making sure that there's a voice for, everyone in it.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's not just 4 guys in a room building it.
Gotcha. We think about, I think it's full steam ahead as well.
Okay.
As we look at that, but what I'm thinking is, let's say 2-3 years from now, is this a Microsoft company? Is Anthropic the big one? Is, it's kind of like Twitter, right? Twitter was bought, turned into X. Everybody hates it. It's still there, right?
Yeah.
But will it be in a year? It's one of those kind of things. In 5 years, is it the new Facebook, where we're not using it as much? I wonder, or is there something that AWS, Shauna, do you know anything?
I do.
Well,
Out there, that's going to just be gangbusters, or are they just going to, bring in Anthropic, and then that's going to expedite what they're doing? So there's all these if-thens I'm looking at in the interactions of the companies that are the game changers here.
Yeah, I think that OpenAI is set to remain on top as it is right now, because I think what's got them on top is that team
Yeah.
and the way that they're going. And if they continue to do that, then they'll remain on top. Like Shauna said, I've never seen such a large team with such dedication and devotion. And it makes me envious to be on the outside of that group for sure. And so I like the correlation there. So OpenAI may be a Microsoft company in the future. Microsoft is known to do that. They like buying companies and making them their own after they invested in them for a while. That's what they did with Wunderlist and several of my favorite applications. But I think that with the direction that they're going right now, the only thing that could come up or that could happen is Anthropic, like we're saying, had something in Claude 2 that they were intentionally repressing because they were doing it for one reason or another. And then as the entire group comes up, then we'll see how it goes, as long as there's no missteps from a business perspective. And so you brought up Twitter. So Twitter just recently had a transition in their business model recently that's gone very poorly. And they were bought for $44 billion, and now they're worth about 14 or 17 billion dollars. So they're definitely losing their butts over there. But that's because they ousted the entire leadership and board and just started making willy-nilly decisions. And I was terrified that was going to happen with OpenAI as well. I thought they were going to bring in somebody who didn't care, didn't have the same motivation. The team would lose its motivation. I was prepared, like once everything was kind of finalized, I was going to cancel my subscription the second that they made the announcement that that Sam wasn't coming back and stuff, because it would basically be worthless. I'd have something I could play with for right now, but in 2 months, it would be something else. It would be another product that would just be not as good, we'll say, and it would continue to fall behind, and I was going to just pivot straight over to something else. I'd go back to Midjourney for my images, and then I'd go to Claude. I was like, I'm a big stand on your principles kind of guy in some ways, and so I'm not going to use something or help somebody in any kind of way, or in somebody, in this case is OpenAI, when they're actively working to destroy the situation. So there was a quote that I can't remember. It was the board replied to something saying essentially that if the company were destroyed, that would be consistent with their goals.
That's not ideal.
And so what that means to me is that they were trying to sell the company. Like they talked to Anthropic, at some point in the past about potentially merging the two companies, and that makes the most sense to me from both sides, because then you've got the people who are financially motivated that get to move over to Anthropic, which is not capped and potentially doesn't have a marketplace goal that would compete with your products. And then from an ethics perspective, like, you've already praised this other company, so why not move OpenAI over to Anthropic? And in doing that, you kind of get the best of both worlds. But I felt like that would be the biggest loss, because if you only have one big driver right now, then your choices are going to be diminished in the long run.
All right, let's go ahead.
No, I was just going to say
humanity here soon.
Got to get to humanity. Okay, yeah. No, I was just going to say, like, I think that it's going to be interesting now that we've set a precedent for, this, where, if you have a great leader and you can, turn this over, will other companies follow suit and try to follow the model? So we could see a difference in our workforce as well. So just a thought.
Yeah.
That's a whole separate podcast, though.
That's a whole separate podcast, but just something that came to my mind. So.
All right. So how about in 1 minute or less, which we can't do.
Yeah.
This will be a separate podcast.
Sure.
But thoughts now with what's happened in the last week, of anything that changes in your mind for the future of humanity. Did you like that, Charlie?
Mm-hmm.
You liked it? That was my silly thing of the podcast today. Go ahead, Charlie. I'll let you go first. I keep making Shauna, but
I'll do it. I'll take it easy. So, like I said, I was ready to quit GPT and everything, and
humanity? No.
Okay. Because I felt like they were harming humanity for personal gains or for personal ideals, and I'm not with that at all. And so I feel like from the human and societal perspective, like we've got more agency in having both than just having one. Because OpenAI is pushing so much right now, as far as they're challenging us to think about culture and society and work and everything in a different way, and we're just getting started with it. And so I think we're going to be better off because a company like this exists, and I think we're going to be especially better off from an infinite growth capitalism kind of way, which again is its own other topic. Because what we've showed the general public is that a board can take a hike if they make a decision that's pure play greed, or ambiguous as far as reasoning goes, which we can assume is greed. From Occam's razor perspective, it's more likely that it's greed than they stumbled across AGI, and this is the board's way to stop that for humanity's sake. And so I'm huge into the way things have gone down and just the precedent that it sets going forward.
Gotcha. Really good point. Shauna, what do you think?
I think as far as humanity goes, I see, I see more good than bad, and I guess maybe that's me just looking at the glasses half full as opposed to half empty. But I just think that the possibilities of like healthcare advancements and things like that, as well as self-driving vehicles and truly autonomous things like that. Will make our lives better. So yeah, people will have to adjust, but they had to adjust. This is the fourth industrial revolution. They had to adjust when assembly lines were built. They had to adjust. So we'll just have to adjust. But I do think technology education is going to be important for everybody, no matter where you're at, no matter what you're planning to do. You're going to need that technology education. Even if you're not a coder, you're going to need to know how to use the tools.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the one thing I would mention is there is a great experiment going, and we only think of the United States, and we're the only ones doing artificial intelligence. We're not doing anything close to what China is doing right now. They are doing things for about every citizen. It is a government-run AI organization there.
Well, that's
doing. Yeah, and so you have that side versus what you're seeing with the United States, which is the normal one, right? Companies or individuals or capitalism runs our country, where overseas you're seeing it different, which that to me is more scary than what Microsoft and OpenAI are doing. Is what we don't know is happening overseas. And I don't want to get too doom and gloom, but there, like I said, I think it was you, Charlie, that said this to me. There's two TikToks, right? One where they're collecting all of our information with dumb videos, and then there's the one that they're actually using in China. That's probably a lot different than the one, And so the collection of data by a government compared to the companies is what really is something I'm always thinking about. And again, we're talking about humanity, so we're talking about a global issue, and that to me is what I always think about, and it's definitely something good for another podcast for sure.
That's a top. That's just China's ethical approach to a lot of things is worth talking about, specifically with AI.
Yeah, that's a whole podcast in itself.
You're not kidding. Every week we got something new to talk about. This is a wild ride. Now let's hope not every week is like this past week in terms of news, but I think you two did a great job of walking through that timeline, telling us some of the real behind the scenes stuff that a lot of us I didn't know for sure until I heard you all talk about it today. So I really appreciate that. I knew it probably as good as the average person that watched it and read one article. And so I think this really helps. In 1 hour you get to catch up on everything that happened over the Thanksgiving week and holiday. That's unbelievable. Shauna, anything to add before we sign off?
No, I'm just excited to see what happens next. And if we may have to do more streams if it keeps going this fast and we can't keep up.
That's for sure.
That's right. Charlie, what do you think?
Like I said before, I'm excited that it played out the way it did. Like I didn't realize how much I cared about the future of OpenAI until all of this started happening.
Oh yeah.
I was a nervous wreck all weekend.
I agree. I mean, I'm really thinking about, how a human lives in this AI world all the time. And this really shook me too. And it's not that I don't know what I don't know is the way I feel right now. But with all that being said, we'll just keep doing our best to figure out what's going on and have to do more of these. So what do you think? Now we're better in person. We understand that. This wasn't terrible, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah. No, I think it worked. I think it worked. So
excellent. All right. So I'm going to say the first stream, especially remote stream, is in the books.
Yep.
And if you like what you heard and saw today, please subscribe. We have a new website, by the way, just posted, I think yesterday, and it is at data4all.io. That's data, the number 4, all.io. And please subscribe, hit that subscribe, leave us a comment or two if you like us. If you don't like us, don't tell us. No, I'm kidding, of course. You can email us at charlie@dataforall.io if you have any questions, concerns, or comments on future episodes. We'd love to hear that. And so for the Data for All podcast, I'm Charlie Apigian.
I'm Charlie Yielding, and
I'm Shauna Sprague.
And until next time.
yay.
Yay. And I'll keep it going just to do it. That was